We have been duped into storing all of our emails on big tech servers so they can scan through them and do with them what they want. Welcome back to Switch to Linux. If you like this type of content, subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. Leave us a like and a comment down below. And today we do want to talk a little bit about email. And I've been thinking about this for a while. And then, of course, this week a story from Google pops up with some changes to Gmail that may impact you depending on how you're doing email and what you're using the services for. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I do want to reminisce a little bit as, I was in that generation that grew up without internet or email. I mean, we literally grew up without it. We didn't have internet in our school until high school. I got my first email address in college. Did I have one the summer before college? I must have had an email address a little bit before that as well. I think I may have. But of course, email was rudimentary back then, and webmail-y type stuff. And of course, we had our Windows computers with our Outlook Express, or maybe if we were like super up there. I actually had Thunderbird since it first came out as well, but I used Outlook Express for a number of different things as well. And we got used to the emails, and we got free email accounts, Hotmail, and then eventually Gmail showed up on the scene. And, people used emails, and as we started using our emails, the ways we started using emails changes. And as Gmail became much more popular, they started pushing that market into more of a cloud-based email, whereas before, particularly on a personal computer. Now, we had access to some webmails. Like our college computers were all webmail based, and they were slow, and they were clunky, and they were annoying. And Gmail really did change a lot of that. But prior to that, we would have our email addresses set up with our ISP would give us an email address. And usually that's what we had. And those were set up with a POP3 account on our Outlook Express or whatever we were using on the computer, which is a way better experience because it gets in there, downloads the message. You can read the messages without being on the internet, because back in that time, I know y'all young folks may not recognize that our computers were not perpetually connected to the internet. We would sit there on our computers, do a bunch of things, turn on the slow internet, do a few online things, and then get off of that internet. We could compose emails and get things ready and read those emails without being connected to an internet connection. And in so doing, what we could do there is we could download all of those messages, but since server space was expensive, our emails, of course, everybody only had one computer, if that. I mean, you might have even had one family computer, but server space was so much more expensive then, and so your application would delete the email off of the server. Keeps the server nice and clean and clear, and that's kind of how email ran for a long period of time. Now, Gmail slowly moved that with creating a better online experience. Of course, the proliferation of broadband internet also greatly increased people utilizing their emails. It was a better experience because of that. There was no weird, slow clunkiness, and computers were getting better and web browsers were getting better. And so more and more services like Gmail popped up to the point where, of course, Microsoft recognizes this and they buy Hotmail. Of course, now they have Outlook.com as their default email address system. And, there's numerous other ones. Of course, in the more privacy area, you have your Proton Mail, you have your Start Page and Start Mail, I guess. And so you have a lot of these different things to look at. But one of the things I noticed changing maybe about 10, 15 years ago when I started doing small business hosting is initially I had, hosting platforms like a lot of your other companies did, and, email, and this is what you have. But what I found is that people who were using your Gmail services also got extraordinarily lazy with their emails. They'd sit there with thousands of just clearly obvious junk spam, and they would never go through and push delete and get that crap out of their system. But it's not just clouding up their their computer, it's clouding up my email servers. And that was kind of problematic. And so I started looking down at everything, seeing that I have as many cases as half of my disk space that I'm paying money for is taken up with just spam emails. And I got to the point where I stopped allowing people to host emails on my platforms. So to this day, I just, I'm the only one with emails on my platforms. I don't want to deal with you doing something stupid with email, or I don't want to deal with you just having thousands and thousands of spam emails just hanging out on my server without ever checking them, without ever deleting them, and things like that. But services like Gmail has made it sloppy. But I want you to stop and think about these protocols and emails, and thinking about this in terms of a privacy standpoint. Now, we'll talk about security in a moment, but the privacy standpoint, as soon as you can get those emails off of somebody else's servers, you will have a lot more privacy. And that's one of the things that the POP email protocol did. And there's two competing email protocols. One is the POP3 and one is the IMAP. And looking at these protocols, POP3 is an older protocol. It generally assumed a single computer or a single device, and it generally assumed that server space was expensive. It is an old protocol. All right. But what happened with it is it would clear that server space on, and that meant your emails were not hanging out in somebody's servers waiting to get hacked or viewed or utilized in some other way. Now, with multiple devices, such as your phones and your tablets and your laptops, IMAP became a predominant means of checking your email. And the IMAP protocol allows you to keep all of the messages and all of the way you're consuming your messages all on the server at the same time. It is, like that initial problem, annoying, because if you don't clear that thing out, it will fill up with tons and tons of spam messages you have to filter through. But then what happens is, when you want to save emails in the old way of POP, when your emails were on your local device, you could save those emails and it wasn't a problem. Now, if you want to save emails on the IMAP protocol, those emails are hanging out in somebody else's cloud for decades in some instances. And it's something that we need to think about in a world where companies want to collect as much data about you as they can. And you notice, like, well, we're not using your data to sell you ads. There's a lot more ways someone can use your data than that. So let's go ahead and chat about the differences in these protocols real quick. So curiously, Microsoft had the better write-up of the POP protocol, and Cloudflare had the better write-up on the IMAP protocol. You'll notice that those two are very misbalanced. But they were both pretty good. And I'm not gonna read this verbatim. I'm just gonna basically explain it. Now, the reason there's two reasons that POP has fallen out of popularity. One is IMAP has evolved with computer security. So if you're checking your Outlook or your Gmail accounts with Thunderbird via the IMAP protocol, you have to sign in now with the OAuth method. It basically opens up a web browser, and you have to do your 2FA, verify it's you, and then occasionally you'll have to do that periodically just to re-verify that particular computer. It is a more secure means of doing your email. But the POP3, what they do here is, what this did is this is the supporting a one-way email synchronization, only allowing users to download emails from a server to a client. Because of it, it lacks most of the basic functionality, such as the ability to mark a message as read. So if you read a message on your phone and then you later check your email on your computer will report that that message has already been read. That's the IMAP protocol. Whereas POP3, even if you set your POP3 to download your messages to multiple devices, then each device will see that message as a brand new message. So there's no read notification on one versus the other. You can think of it as ebook syndication on a Kindle. If you have like 3 different Kindles and they're all attached to the same account and they are all on the internet, I can pick up one Kindle, I can start reading, I can leave a bookmark, I can leave highlights, I can put that Kindle down, I can pick up another Kindle on the same account, still connected to the internet, and those changes to the book on the first Kindle will be syndicated across to the second Kindle. And that really is what a good explanation of the IMAP is. Whereas one of the challenges we have right now in managing ebooks in a FOSS world, and if there is a solution to this, I haven't found it yet, like a good solution. There's a few harebrained solutions, but if there's a good solution, somebody tell me about it. But usually if we're running like a Calibri library, you'd have to download that book to multiple different devices, and if you read, highlight, bookmark in one book, they are not sent back up to your library. That's like POP3. It's likewise sending emails. On an IMAP protocol, if you send an email, that sent email lives inside of that server, whereas in the POP protocol, you send that email and that email gets saved only to the local device it was sent from. Now, this was not a bad thing in a world where people generally only had one device, but now we have multiple different devices. And, you might have a home computer and a laptop computer and a phone. You could check messages on all. If you're using IMAP protocol across the board, everything stays synchronized. But what happened is all of those messages and every functionality is all now stored in the cloud. And that is somebody else's cloud. That's one of the things that you have to recognize when you're looking at these various features. Because of this, POP has fallen out of favor in favor of IMAP, but the problem is that IMAP is a fully cloud-based system, which also means you might have issues with compliance, whereas from a legal compliance standard, it is way better for me to download those messages onto a single device and keep that device very secure. That is a better option than keeping all those things up in the cloud where some server can be breached. Now, Cloudflare is talking a little bit about IMAP, and we've talked about this, I think, in enough detail now to talk about it, looking at basically the syndication versus the one-way. Now, I still personally like POP on many of my accounts because, number one, I could keep my servers clear. So I'll have multiple computers and devices checking my emails. But in reality, I don't need to keep every email around like it's a pet. Okay, so I have one computer that is a master email store, and that computer's email, and those are all checked via POP3 on Evolution. That one account gets rigorously backed up a few times a year, so I still have an old record. If for some reason I need to go back and find an email from 5 years ago, it's in cold storage, but I can still access it. And that's one of those important things. I can simply spin up any distro on, even in a virtual machine, drop the backup file for Evolution, install Evolution, drop the backup file for it, and boom, I can gain access to all those old emails that were downloaded via POP. But I can also set POP then to clear that server so I'm not utilizing server space, or, better case, I'm not letting emails hang out in a cloud for a long time. And that really is the principle I wanted to talk about here. And the reason we wanted to talk about it is because Google is now doing away with any ability to access your account via a POP3. And so if you happen to be using this and you're like, I want a master record of my Gmail account, you can no longer save that record directly to your computer. And even more importantly, you can no longer download those messages and then delete them from Google servers. Okay? Because don't forget, Google can keep a copy of all those messages, and they can still access those messages for whatever purposes they happen to want to do with it for any period of time, as long as they stay within that server account. But once you take them out of that server account, well, they can no longer utilize that message. Now, of course, they say we don't use these things to sell you ads, and do we believe them or not? You trust them or don't trust them as your gut is inclined. I'm not sure I trust them. Okay. Because there's too much money to be made. And all they'll do if they get caught doing anything nefarious is they will pay a fine, which amounted to a very small percentage of the money that they made. So it's not worth it for them to not to. I'm not saying they are. They say they don't. But they did not say they won't use your messages for other purposes. They have not ever said, your messages are your messages. We will never use them for any way, means, purpose, or anything else. That is not a statement that is anywhere in Google. Okay. So they are ditching POP-based. Now, they can use the security portion. And I didn't touch on the security as much. In the POP protocol, when you are sending your messages, now, you can do these in encrypted messages. You can do these through passing all of the credentials in encrypted. Now, most of the write-ups we just said says it passes the password in plain text. Now, it used to pass the passwords in plain text. All of mine are passing all of the data, including the passwords, via SSL. So that is not truly the reason, but they don't have a good means to do POP3 with a 2FA like you can on IMAP. And so there is a security hit with utilizing POP3. That is completely true. But the only reason that exists is because it was designed to not be as secure. They never upgraded it. IMAP didn't have 2FA when it first started either. Okay, they added it in. They could add it in and make your POP account much more secure. Why don't they? It is counter to their interests because they have an interest in keeping everything on that nice, easy, convenient cloud that gives them very access convenience to your inbox. All right, so they are shutting down two specific features. One of those is the Gmailify. This is a service I had actually not heard much about, but again, I don't use Gmail for anything, so no kidding, I didn't know about it. What this allows you to do is utilize other IMAP accounts like your Yahoo email, your Outlook email, various other accounts, anything, and you can filter that through Gmail, and you can basically check it on the Gmail app or online or wherever you're checking your Gmail, but it will also run the same email filters that Gmail uses on your email. So this is a nice way for Gmail to gain access to all of your other messages. I'm not sure why they're getting rid of this one. But the POP3, they are getting rid of that one. They are saying, hey, this is because of security, even though they could fix the security if they wanted to. However, let me say this here. The reason they don't is because they are starting to make partnerships with other organizations based on the content of your email. And if you're using a POP3 system and you are downloading those messages, and then the default for POP3 used to be to delete them from the server once they're downloaded. Now, I turn that feature off on every one of my devices except that one master computer. So that one master computer is the one that clears the messages off the server. That gives me a chance to download the messages within 30 days. Basically, I have it set as a 30-day timer. If I haven't accessed the email on my phone 30 days later, I don't need it, okay? Because I don't check email on my phone much anyway, just if I know I'm looking for something. All right, and I don't tend to, if I haven't accessed that email on a work laptop, I haven't touched the work laptop for 30 days for email, well, guess what? I probably don't need that email right now. If I do, I can forward it back to myself. No big deal. But why I wanted to mention this is I remembered a story, and I had to dig a little bit to find it. But back in October of 2023, so 18 months ago now, I always get confused around the time changes. So 25, 24, 23. So it was a while ago, okay? A while ago. Two and a half years? I don't know. Anyway, back in October of 2023, PayPal starts rolling out a tracking feature. Well, what is the tracking feature? This is, and we cover this in the news, this is a feature that allowed them to turn on a feature that would be hunting around, and it will look in your email to provide you notifications of order shipments. And it utilizes, in this instance, the Google API. So it's going to search through your inbox looking for any of your emails, and anything that looks like it is a PayPal notification, anything that looks like an order notification, basically anything that looks like you're buying stuff, PayPal can see. By the way, this works even on non-PayPal orders. Yes, it does. Addition to allows PayPal users to instantly view status of their deliveries without having to manually enter the numbers by searching through email inboxes, according to a report from TechCrunch. PayPal's update automatically gathers shipping details via an integration with Gmail. Users without Gmail account linked to PayPal can still manually input the tracking details. One addition to PayPal's packaging feature is live push notifications. Users will receive live updates when there is a change in the delivery status or an update to their order. Additionally, PayPal's app offers a visual tracking capability, allowing users to follow their packages on a live map, and the packaging tracking feature is available on both iOS and Android devices. Does not incur any additional fees. Users can use the tools regardless of whether they use PayPal for checkout or not. So PayPal can hunt through your Gmail account for you, looking for anything you might have bought, and give you wonderful, convenient delivery notifications. They can't do that if your computer's deleting the server email. And there's information over here. Now, this is not automatic. You do have to link your Gmail account. Why you would marry two big tech data hogs to your devices together is beyond me. If you do that, you might need a checkup from the neck up. But anyway, you can actually access it. What can you do with the package tracking? So you go into the PayPal, you go on the home screen, go to the upper left-hand corner, go to activity, and then you can see that screen to track your packages automatically. All you need to do is link your Gmail to package tracking. So you link that in, you are granting PayPal access to your inbox, which they can't access if you're using POP3 and setting that computer to delete files from Google servers. And wouldn't it be freedom to, even if you have to use a Google account, to just have all of those emails perpetually on your device without Google having that solid record of them all the time? Sure, they probably keep backup archives, but at some point in time, they got to overwrite what they got with what they have. This is how does it work? How do you do it manually? How does package tracking comply with email provider policies? Google, PayPal's use and transfer of information received from Google's API package tracking will adhere to Google's API services user data policy, just like the Cambridge Analytica scandal completely followed all of Facebook API services, including limited use requirements, just like Cambridge Analytica. They were limited on what they could do. Outlook, PayPal's use and transfer of information received from Microsoft. Oh, yes, this works for Microsoft too. Microsoft APIs for tracking will adhere to Microsoft's API terms of use policies. That's right. Enforced by a guy who's probably asleep at the wheel, or worse, Copilot. Oh, dear. And so, in my opinion, Google and other services are getting rid of these because it clears the data off of the servers. It puts the data back in your control, and they want to keep that data under their control. Now, is that possibly a flimsy argument? It might be, because frankly, I might be the only person I know still using POP3. I might be one of the only people I know who actually knows the difference between POP3 and IMAP on a technical level. On that basis, though, I would encourage people to start thinking about that. If you truly are concerned about privacy, you should stop storing your emails on somebody else's servers. You should download copies of them. And what I do with my accounts is I can check almost all my emails on my phone. I don't use my phone for that type of stuff. Like I said, it's there if I need to, but I don't actually check email on my phone on a regular basis. It would be a rarity. All right. And I actually set my, I have 3 different computers that check email via POP, and then all of them will be able to gain emails within 30 days. And then after a message reaches that 30-day mark, or after I think it's been checked after 30 days after it's been checked, I can't remember if it's the creation date or the check date. I think it's the check date. Then the computer will automatically remove it from the server. It keeps my servers nice and clean and prevents those messages from falling into potential awry hands in the event of, if you're talking like a Google type server, it keeps you from keeps the people from accessing those messages. Suppose there's a rogue employee at the company or some security breach. If it's your own server, yeah, there could be potential security issues with your server. You need to be cognizant of that. And so that is kind of the take home here. Think about the privacy aspect, and you might need that IMAP protocol. I'm not saying you're dumb if you use it. I actually use the IMAP protocol on a few of the emails that I have here because I do need some of that convenience in a few of those places. So just be aware that that is certainly an option, but be aware that there is a way that you can do email on a local single device without spreading breadcrumbs of yourself all over the clouds to everybody else. So let me know your thoughts about all of that in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.